Hey, everybody, this is Lorelia. Welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. This podcast is for real estate investors who are interested in leveraging all types of capital for their business, whether it be asset based lending, credit, cash, or what have you. It is best to know what is going to be the right choice when you decide to purchase real estate. And that will lead me into today's topic, and that is know your real estate buy box. So, as I film this podcast, I just want to kind of give you an idea of where we are at in the world. Um, I am filming this from the great state of New Jersey, but also I am also filming this in United States. And unless you are not from this country, but if you are from this country, you know that we have a new president that is in office. And of course, this podcast is not going to be a political podcast, as that is not what we do on this show. But it is a podcast that is a lot of times influenced by the political climate of what's going on. So, like I said, as I film this video today, um, a lot of things have happened. And it's outside of the scope of this podcast. It's not really real estate related. But one thing that I can say for certain, with everything going on, interest rates have not changed that much. And so for the last couple of episodes, at least last week, or the last time I did an episode, I talked about the $30 trillion industry of asset based lending. And if you don't know what asset based lending is lending as primarily used by real estate investors who want to do DSCR loan, who's construction, fix and flip, fix and rent, new construction. It's everything outside of the residential space. So it's not FHA, it's not, VA, it's not 203K loans. It's primarily for the investor world. And so, with me saying that, that's why I want to do this episode, because I don't claim to be an economist. Definitely do not claim to be someone who can predict the future. But I will say, as I shoot this podcast, and video for those who will watch it on YouTube and Spotify, interest rates for at least DSCR loans are actually lower than the 30-year fixed. And if you're wondering, well, why is that so? I've said in other podcasts is that the 30-year fix is a whole different index. And so the DSCR space does not follow the 30-year fix. It follows the 5 and the 10-year treasury. So if you were to look on any type of federal, or should I say any housing market index, they'll tell you the rate. So that is the index that the DSCR space follows. And so rates are lower than the 30-year fix. And so with a lot of things that have, transpired and gone on in the whole real estate and space in terms of real estate agents, they got a lot going on, with the NAR settlement or what have you. I really do believe, and that is why I'm doing this podcast episode, is that things are going to fall in favor for the investor. They are going to fall in favor of the investor. And that's why more than ever, if you are an investor, you need to know your buy box. And what do I mean by your buy box? What is it that you are currently buying now or you plan to buy in the future? And what strategy have you put in place to be able to capitalize and take advantage of opportunities that may come down the line? Because I've said this in other episodes, seasoned and experienced real estate investors who are buying multifamilies, a lot of times their strategy is based on the cash flow. Interest rates usually do not come into play because, of course, if the asset can cash flow and the interest rate could be possibly a little higher, it will still be a win for the investor. Currently, right now, I'm working with an investor now who has a plan in place. They have a full-time job, so they understand they don't have the mindset of how can I become a millionaire overnight. They have been working this plan for a while, and they also have a plan that they want to leave their job during a certain point, whereas they're going by what is it that their portfolio needs to generate in terms of what are the assets that they need to buy. They're in the multifamily space, they're buying multifamilies, they know what they want a cash on cash return, they know what they want their numbers to be, and so that is what they are looking at when they are making their purchase. They're not interest rate sensitive. What they're sensitive is making sure that the asset cash flows. Because as I mentioned to you, this individual is a working professional. So they're not trying to get rich overnight. They've been doing this for a while, and they will continue doing it until they have reached a point in their portfolio to be able to cash flow the numbers that they want. Why do I say this? Because once again, it goes back to why I'm doing this episode. What's in your buy box? Now is not the time to listen to what I call internet shock jocks. For the past couple of years, you've had talking heads online and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this particular person that I'm working with came across someone who was a talking head, because we're in a space now where information is, at an all-time high. There's no lack of information. Whether you go to AI, whether you listen to other professionals, whether you listen, you read books or you're listening to audio books, listening to podcasts, there is no shortage of information. But what there is a shortage of is implementation. It's easy for talking heads online, shock jocks who want to reiterate something that they've heard. With enough confidence, you can make yourself sound really good with what it is that you are delivering across the screen or maybe even in person. But this is the gotcha: when it's time to implement. When that person is giving you the play, giving you the blueprint, sharing with you the secrets, but can't be able to implement it or help you to implement it or show you how to implement it, that is what's missing. So, going back to the person that I'm working with, that is what they came across. Individuals who gave great information, but implementation, there was a lack. And let me just say this: I don't speak from a place of, how a person needs to run their business. But let's just say this particular person, and I've came across a few people where you have individuals who want to share with you a lot of information, and then they'll say, oh, well, if you want help implementing it, I only implement it to, my most highest level of clients. And so this particular person could write the check, like, well, what's your number? This person is a working professional. They work in pharmaceutical sales. If you know anything about pharmaceutical sales, you know that's a very lucrative industry. Like I said, in New Jersey, I think we lead the nation in terms of pharmaceutical companies. Very lucrative um, salary. And I get it. You know, there's perspective when it comes to what's lucrative. So let me just say, persons in the mid six figures. So being able to cut the check, you know, to get that hand holding support that the individual said that they can provide, the person wrote the check. Well, when the person wrote the check and was like, okay, great information, now I'm ready for implementation, it fell flat. Fell flat. The person could not really implement based on the information that they were sharing. Why do I bring that up? This is not to shame what's out there in the marketplace. It is what it is. In every generation, there's always going to be charlatans, there's always going to be imposters. It's nothing that you can do. But I say this to say that I believe in the next couple of years, we are going to lean very heavy in an investor favor. Having your ducks in a row, being able to capitalize on opportunities that will come down the line is going to be determined with what is it that you buy and what is part of your buy box. What is it that you're looking to do to say, this is what I am going to utilize in real estate to build my wealth? What is that? Once you have determined that, now it becomes, how am I going to finance it? Nobody wants to use their cash. So the whole idea of, I'm going to save up money and be able to pay cash for opportunities that come down the line, it's based on a choice. Don't get me wrong. Yes, there are people that's what they do. Their goal is to do everything debt free. But of course, on this show, this is not a debt free show. This is a show that talks about financing, creative ways that a real estate investor could leverage to be able to expand and be able to grow their portfolio. And so once you know, this is my buy box, when opportunities come down the line, this is how I want to move forward to be able to execute. These are the plans that you need to be putting in place now. I talked about it in other episodes. Who's part of your power team? Who are the power players that's going to help you to execute this? Seasoned investors know they're not trying to be a jack of all trades. There, I rarely have I seen a seasoned investor who says, I know everything about financing. They don't, because they're not in it every day. They may be doing getting financing for their particular, once again, their buy box, but they don't know all the intricate details of what it's going to take to be able to move forward and leverage whatever financing tool may work. Because a lot of times it's going to take looking at other ways that you could be able to execute on a real estate transaction. Over the weekend, I had the opportunity to speak at a first-time home buyers event. Now, I've said many times on this podcast, I am not a first-time home buyers person. That's not what I do. Don't help nobody get no FHA loans. I just know the top layer of what I would say of things that have to do with FHA and VA. And that's because the guidelines are right online. So of course, want to stay abreast of it, but don't do the business. But I was invited to speak, and I wanted to speak there because I believe exposure is everything. Although the population of people are not investors, but you never know. You never know what seed you may plant where a person could be like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Well, I'm glad I got a chance to be able to go, because there were people who were in the audience who were doing very big things, but they just weren't homeowners. So one of the individuals that I met, is a very influential person in the cannabis space. Cannabis is legal here in New Jersey, and so they are a leading figure in that space. And so when I was talking to that individual, I was talking to them about, lenders who are now cannabis friendly, because a lot of times, even though states were where cannabis was legal, things that required financing, like, you wanting to buy a commercial storefront, and be able to run your cannabis, business there, many lenders frowned on it, because of course you need to be able to tell certain lenders, depending on how the financing is set up, what type of business you are involved in. And so once again, just, I'm not really giving full context, because of course there are some things in real estate and commercial leveraging asset-based lending that you can do, and a lender may not know the business that you're in. But I say all that to say, had a conversation with the person, and share with them opportunities that are available to them in the asset-based and commercial lending space that they were not even aware of. And so also, while being there, um I will just say this. I was reading some statistics, and I had planned to share them, but I don't have them pulled up. Let me just say this. I believe these statistics are pretty much across the board when you think of an urban city, because where I spoke was an urban city in New Jersey, in the city of Newark, one of the largest cities in the state, but it is an urban city. And so the average home on the MLS multifamily is $500,000. I did a DSCR case study on a multifamily, and I showed you $500,000 easy. There are even some that are listed that are 800,000. But get this. This is what the census brought up. Because I did some research, and I said, I kind of know the population of individuals who live in the city. Homes are $500,000. I even seen some that are 800,000, new construction. The residents of the city, per the US Census.gov, I want to cite my source so you can do the research yourself. Income of the individuals is less than 30K. Now, I hate to say common sense ain't common, but you run your numbers. I'm not going to run numbers on here. A person who makes 30K is not going to be able to afford a house that's $500,000 or 800,000. I just want you to kind of sit and think about that. For my podcast listeners who may be just listening and not watching, yes, I am pausing, because I just want you to kind of just think for a second. So when I say that I am not going to claim to be a person who is predicting the future or an economist, I'm looking at the numbers on the board. And when you look at the numbers on the board, you could clearly see that that things are in favor of the investor. Because A multifamily that's $500,000 or 800,000, which is really the population that I serve. You've seen me do the DSCR case study. I said on an average, if a person put 20% down, and once again, 20% is the floor, it's not the ceiling. That's over, over 100K. That's why I say things are going to lean heavy for the investor. Now you have to decide on what side of the monopoly game board you want to play. That's why I said be very careful of online shock jocks. Let me just kind of touch on that. What do I mean by online shock jocks? I was listening to a podcast, very influential minister in the African American community had a person on their podcast who, I guess on the online space is, maybe very influential. And person was saying, about not buying real estate. And that's a very big conversation online. Should you buy it? Should you not? Everything has context. Let me say this, the response that the person who was the guest on the show, who, like I said, is an online personality, they were totally against buying real estate. But their response was that I have a friend who does very good with buying, who does very good with stocks. That was their response. Now, of course, I'm giving my version of of reiterate the story. But the whole thing was that don't buy real estate. The person shared their story and some things that happened with them when they bought it. But then the other side was, well, I have a friend who does very good with buying stocks. So, you know, the recommendation was buy stocks, don't buy real estate. Like I said, everything has context. I'm not here to convince you should you lean heavy on real estate or should you lean heavy on stocks. Of course, I'm going to be partial and objective because I talk a lot about real estate. But only you would know, going back to shock jock things that people put out online, things that's gonna grab attention. But what's sad is that a lot of the people who are listening are not going to be people who have choices. They're not going to be the people who have choices. They're going to be the people that are similar to the city that the minister has their church. Because remember, I said this was a minister who has a very large congregation in an urban city, not here in New Jersey. But of course, I'm not going to disclose that because it'll be clear of who this person is. But in another urban city in the United States, where I don't claim to know the numbers, but I'm going to bet you that at least 75% of the parishioners who attend that religious um that religious um I'm trying not to say the word, but that religious entity um would be similar to what I said with the city of Newark. Homes are $500,000 in the favor of the investor, the people that I work with, not the population of people who live in that city. Like I said, the whole conversation of should you rent, should you buy real estate is going to be based on your individual needs. What I will say this, the next 4 years is going to look very different than what a lot of people may be used to. I say this story all the time. I got started during a time when most people ran away from real estate. Back in '08, I was in my 30s. People ran away from real estate because of the housing crash and everything. I ran to it. And so let's just do a timeline of events. During that time, we had an administration that put in place things that we know of today as of Dodd-Frank. The lending space was after '08 was pretty much, you know, very tough. Uh, Lending was not as fluid as it is today. But after that, a new administration came in. And like I said, this is not a political rant to say one is better than the other, but I just want you to notice economic cycles. This is not to paint the picture of politics, but to paint the picture of economic cycles. After that, we got Dodd-Frank, lending got toughened, banking was toughened, being able to buy a home was more difficult. Then after that, new administration came in, lightened some of the things with Dodd-Frank, but didn't, of course, do away with it. But that birthed fintech. That birthed fintech. So what is fintech? The whole movement of the online banks. If you look at many of the online lending platforms that exist today, and you see when they came into the marketplace, you will notice that many of them came in after 2013, after a certain period of time. Why do I give you these timelines of events? Because things are going to change. As AI become more of a household name, companies are already using it. I'm definitely seeing it in the lending marketplace. Like I can tell you right now, gone are the days of if you want to get financing, do you need to use your social? There are things that if I'm taking the app, I just need basic things and I can get all the information that's needed. Don't need for somebody to give me their actual social. I say that to say that as AI gets incorporated in more lending platforms, like I said, the asset based lending space is a $30 trillion industry. They are already using it. Things are going to be different. And so be very careful of listening to online shock jock terms, because back in 2020, when we had this big surge of individuals saying, hey, business funding, buying real estate, like I said, early part of this podcast, is a lot of people gave a lot of information, but what was lacking was implementation. And let me say this, and I stand corrected. I am not talking about business funding from the standpoint of, because this is where a lot of people get it mixed up. And I'm using me as an example, not what's in the marketplace, because I'm not really concerned about what other people do, but I'd like to make it clear. Because when I speak on this, people say, well, Lorelia, you do business funding and the whole real estate, but understand the difference. I have and let me just say this, my results speak for themselves. So, check the fruits. The way I have been able to help clients when it comes to leveraging business funding has not been in the place of let me repair your credit, get you some business credit cards, and then help you buy real estate. Understand the population of my clients came already to the table knowing real estate. They were already doing what it is that they do. So a lot of the success stories and testimonials that I have shared were from people who were already doing real estate. I came in and put my sauce on it, on the ways of how they can leverage different forms of funding, business funding being one piece. And they were able to take my framework when it comes to funding to be able to put over what they were doing in their buy box. So that's why when I talk about this topic of know your real estate buy box, it is based on proven clients that I've worked with. Because I tell people all the time, I don't teach you how to get into real estate. That's not what I do. So why do I mention all that? Because when we had this surge of so many people coming to the marketplace telling people, hey, business funding for real estate, there was no context to it, because really all it was is just credit repair, some business credit cards with the hopes of let's get you started in real estate. And for some people that may work. I always tell people, if all you want is a business credit card, I'm not your person. Like there are no investors that I work with want to spend time going to all the banks in their area with the hopes of getting 15 here, 15 here, this, that, and the other, with the accumulation of, oh, I may get this. They want a proven strategy. Going back to what I said with the client of mine who's in pharmaceutical sales, they know portfolio wise, this is where their portfolio needs to be. This is how much cash flow they need to generate from their portfolio. And now, what is the funding? What is the financing piece that they're going to put in place that's going to help them achieve that? And that can be many things. It may be funding. It may be asset-based lending. It may be private lenders. It may be self-directed. It could be. It could be a lot of things. It's not just one thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you with this. As we embark and go into 2025, along with the next couple of 4 years, things are going to look very, I think, promising for investors based on what I said, because they're not going to be promising for those who are just going to go around the monopoly board and collect $200. Take that any way you want. So I say this to say, know your buy box. Know what it is that you're buying, that you are currently buying, that you plan to buy in the future, how that's going to expand your portfolio, or help you build out the current portfolio that you would like to put in place. And if you're unsure with what financing will work best for you, let's have a conversation. Let's discuss it. Let's have a conversation. And if that's a discussion you want to have, I want you to go to www.neverloseadealpodcast.com. There you're going to see a few links, but what you want to do is click the link that says, let's discuss your loan scenario. And so I'm going to leave you with that. So until the next time, like I said, know your real estate buy box. Be ready for opportunities that I believe will be coming down the line in the next couple of years, and straddle up and stay away from shock jocks. So I say that to say, enjoy your week, and I'll see you in the next podcast. Bye-bye.